Aye.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Short Bus Debate Club. This is Brian Courtney, and as always, Darren Jolly's across the table from me.
Hello.
Today in this episode, we are going to be talking about unions. Good thing, bad thing. I've got my opinions, which I'm sure you probably know by now. So unions, I guess what initially kind of got us started on this idea was because Darren was laughing at some idiot baristas wanting to form a union or something. So we decided to go ahead and talk unions. Like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before we, get into it too deep, a union is basically just a bunch of people getting together and bargaining for the same thing, or at least having collective bargaining power. Generally, I would think that they want the same thing, better wages, better benefits, whatever. I think it's kind of funny. I had no idea, when the first unions were started here in the United States. Now I know because I did some research because of this show, but the first recorded strike was in 1768, which is a long fucking time ago.
What was the conditions? What was going on?
I don't know. It just says first recorded strike.
They don't even talk about they were like basket weavers?
No. But in 1794, in Philadelphia, the shoemakers in Philadelphia formed the first union.
Cobblers? No. I didn't call them cobblers at that point.
It said shoemakers. I think I was going to call them cobblers too, but I don't know. A cobbler can do repairs also. Maybe that's the difference. But maybe in 1794 you had to do both. I don't know. I thought of the Keebler Elves for some reason, but those motherfuckers didn't even make shoes. They made cookies.
Are you fucking joking me? The Keebler cobblers.
The National Labor Union was created in 1866. Now, here's something that's kind of cool. In 1867, the National Cigar Makers Union, and that probably wasn't their actual title, but they were the first union to accept women and blacks.
What was that year again?
1867.
Okay.
Also in 1867, 2,000 Chinese workers protested their pay. My guess is those 2,000 skeletons are somewhere along the railroad tracks of the Transcontinental Railway.
Yeah, I can't say for sure, but that probably would make some sort of sense.
Now here's two things that are important with regard to unions and just labor in general. 1913, the Department of Labor was formed. And in 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed. And that was the first act that included verbiage for minimum wage, overtime pay, and child labor laws.
Really, really, really important piece of legislation. Like, it's still, in anything that you have in terms of collective bargaining, it still is brought up all the time.
Yeah, I think I was going to reference it just because of the fact that with legislation like that and some of the other legislation that we've got now, I think argues in a lot of cases to just not even fucking bother with unions anymore. But that's my opinion. What do you think?
Okay, so obviously, since I have, as I suggested many times in previous episodes, that I have an affinity to Marx, I think that capital needs counterbalances. I think that the concept of unions is a very good one, particularly since, in my estimation, corporations are essentially unionized capital. I mean, it's collective capital. I don't know that that's of course, they would never say it that way or think about it that way, but I think it would be helpful if people started to understand that even in the moments when the East Indian Trading Company, those guys said, let's get our shit together and start, watching each other's back and seeing if we can't pool our, if that doesn't help our collective position become stronger. I think that was a good introduction to understanding that collective positions have substantially more abilities to affect outcomes, both in terms of the actions that you're trying to do or the positions that you're trying to enhance.
No,
let me go off for a minute here.
I was just going to ask you a question,
okay.
But go ahead.
No, okay.
No.
Just ask.
Go.
Ask, bitch.
Do your thing, fuckface.
So obviously, when capital started to consolidate its position through these various different spaces, whether cartels, monopolies, there needed to be a counterbalance. So in that sense, in an ideal type kind of form, and because I do believe, generally speaking, that, and I'm not a doctrinaire when it comes to Marx, but I do believe that all history is the history of class struggle. I think that everything, when it moves forward, has to do with tensions between different power positions, and that people struggle in relation to that, in relation to how they fit into the system and how they connect to one another. I do think it's very interesting right now how, in the wake of Bernie running in 2016 and 2020, how much the idea of unionization in the United States, at least, has sort of come to the foreground. But I'm not certain, and I like I suggested in the past, I work for the post office. I am a member of the APWU, Local 229, which is Denver local. I would just say that the picture that people have in their heads of what it is that a union can do or should do, there's a big gap between the fantasy with regards to what it is that people think should be happening as a result of their collective positions developing and the outcomes that are oftentimes not coming to fruition because I just think that maybe unions aren't, at least in the United States right now, they sort of lost their way.
I think I mostly agree with that. There are some workers that maybe still require union assistance. People, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people besides these that I'm gonna mention are getting fucked over on a regular basis also, but probably not as much. So, farm workers where they're paying you by the piece, or by the box or whatever. A lot of that may or may not have to do with, whether or not you are a resident alien or whether you're here illegally. But, in certain manufacturing facilities, they pay you by the piece. I think certain mining companies are still, if you're a coal miner, you're probably getting the shaft. Literally.
You're a douchebag, but that was not a bad one. I mean, as far as
But
lousy double entendres.
I don't know for sure because I don't know any coal miners and I've never seen their pay. But I do know that a lot of them, in West Virginia and Kentucky, they're still members of the union. Pennsylvania, now they're selling the clean coal thing, which is fine, whatever. In Colorado, we had our problems with unions and coal too. I mean, lots of people were killed down in southern Colorado by the, what do you call them, goon squads,
Yeah,
the ones
who
that
were they hiring?
roll through. I think that was Rockefeller's mine.
But they were hiring from the security guard people. What are they called?
Oh, like not Wells Fargo.
Yeah, it is the other one. Yeah.
Shit. They talk about them in Deadwood all the time. They were.
It'll pop back up here in a minute. We'll figure it out.
They were a detective agency too.
So you at the beginning and the way you led into that, it sounded like you were suggesting that in the modern or in the present day, that you think that generally speaking.
Right, those people that I just mentioned, the miners and all of those, I think that maybe those people still need unions. A barista at Starbucks doesn't need a fucking union. The guy at Target or Walmart or wherever doesn't need a union as far as I'm concerned. And here's why. Because if you're a barista at Starbucks, you're making minimum wage plus tips. If you're working at Target, you're making minimum wage. Same goes for Walmart, wherever, right? Well, if you're in the union, then you pay 10% of your wages into the pot or a flat fee or whatever. Well, so then I guess that would give the bougie kids at Starbucks one other thing to complain about, that the union's taking too much money from them, even though they're the ones that form the fucking union.
I got it. So the way that you introduced when I was making fun of the Starbucks kids, I want to be clear. My problem with their position is that I think that they are, generally speaking, some of them, not all of them, because there are kids that work, I'm sure, at Starbucks that don't come from wonderful backgrounds where they're flush, and successful. But I think that when I see the way that so you create a union at Starbucks. So over the course of the last couple of years. The Starbucks locations that have successfully developed or voted to put unions in place, they've done it in Buffalo, New York, Mesa, Arizona, Seattle, Washington, Knoxville, Tennessee, New York, and some other places that I don't know about yet. But I don't want to give the illusion that I don't think you have to have a counterbalance to capital. I mean, if capital can organize into corporations, there needs to be another counterpoint. I mean, do you really think that you're capable of coming in and negotiating with Amazon on an equal playing field as the Amazon position is in terms of negotiating with you?
Probably not, but I don't trust a union either. Okay, so Kroger is a large grocery store chain. I think they're nationwide, but they own King Soopers and City Market stores here in Colorado. A friend of ours worked for King Soopers back whenever they fucking went on strike. The point here is that they didn't really support the workers the way that they should have. So our friend worked there, I don't know, I think it was 3 or 4 years by the time they went on strike. But there were lots of those employees that had worked there for 15, 20 years. And they were paying 10% of their check every week.
Was it a flat 10%?
Yeah. And the only reason I know that is because they were part of the grocery thing,
Yeah.
and that's what I paid when I worked at Safeway back then.
That's a brutal number. Ours is just flat fees, but that's a brutal number.
And maybe once you make so much money, they change it to a flat fee, but it was 10% at minimum wage, which still doesn't make it any better. But so they were paying X number of dollars per week out of their check. And again, my friend had worked there 4 years. Well, they went on strike. And the whole idea behind the strike is that the union is now going to pay you because you're on strike. The only thing you have to do to get paid is show up to the picket line to show your support for your peers, your brothers in arms, the other people holding the picket line. And I can't remember for sure, but I don't think that they went more than 3 weeks before the union said, sorry, we're out of money, we can't pay you anymore. Now, how the fuck is that even possible when all of these people were paying per week for all of this time? And, they're going to say, well, we have, overhead and we got to pay for our building and, there's mail and all of this other shit. That's fine. I understand that there's stuff that comes out of those dues, but a portion of those dues was supposed to go to the strike fund. And the strike fund should have paid you for more than 2 months, 3 months. I mean, you should have been able to be in it for the long haul. So at that point, that was where I started to kind of think, okay, maybe the unions are in it more for themselves than they are for the people they're supposed to be supporting.
I agree with the overall point that you're making, that sometimes, particularly the people at the top of these, sometimes there's some questionable positions. And maybe the structures of the way that particular one in King Soopers was put together as did not effectively carry out its promise. I don't think that as many people as King Soopers employees, that they are that any union is going to be that liquid that they're going to be able to just pay people. Let me just keep going for a second, right? They're going to be able to just keep paying indefinitely, right? And in the same spirit, these kids that are at Starbucks and rah sis boom buying, this does not help us to negotiate an effective space, either through when they run out of the money or when they're sort of like being cheerleaders, sort of like because it's hip to go and develop a union or something like that. But just because they're not structured perfectly, I don't think that there will ever be a time, so long as capital is as powerful as it is, that we're ever going to be able to not need some sort of like concrete counterbalance to that position.
That's fair, but the reason I mentioned the Kroger thing is because you said corporations need a counterbalance. And the reason I brought up the Kroger union specifically is because to me, it felt like that union was just another fucking corporation. The only difference was they had nonprofit filing status for the IRS. But other than that, they are a corporation. I mean, and that's just through my eyes. Yeah. I mean, but that was kind of where Roger said, fuck it, I'm not paying the union anymore. And I know other people at King Soopers that kind of said, fuck it, I'm done.
So much so that it's gotten really weak. I mean,
well, now see, that's another thing is because, since the 80s, and when I say they, I'm talking about the they that we always talk about.
Well,
they have been trying to break the back of the union since the 80s. And here they have done a pretty fucking good job, because what they're doing is, if there's an old store that was a union store, they shutter it and build a new one, a mile or two away. And that new store is now a non-union store.
Is it a non-union store because it hasn't established itself as a union store? Or is it because, how does that work inside of Kroger's or King Soopers?
To the best of my knowledge, the way that it works is when they open up the new store, it's just non-union. But what they do, and here's where they fuck everybody again, is they call them fee payer stores. So everybody that works there still has to pay into the union, but they don't get any of the union benefits, which is horseshit.
So at the post office, it's the opposite, actually. If you don't pay into the union still has a legal obligation to bargain on your behalf. Now, I'm not going to make any arguments that if a person is non-union, that they're going to work as hard for that person. But if something ended up going in front of like the labor board, the state labor board, and a person could demonstrate that they weren't being protected in the same level, then the union would be liable at that point. And to what extent, I don't know that I understand exactly what the full dynamics of it are. But having said that, like your fundamental argument, I do totally agree with on at least in the sense that like the structures of these systems, in terms of the unions and the way that the unions are sort of like reproducing the positions that they're in, is incredibly fucking problematic. Like the people that I saw that were in the union at the post office, not all of them, but some of them, they went and did it because they didn't want to have to do work anymore. They wanted to be able to sit in an office. And there were some that worked hard. They know who they are, and the ones that were fucking worthless pieces of shit, they know who they were too. I was a steward for about a year. I couldn't do it because, in my estimation, if you're going to have at the station where I worked at that time, which was Bear Valley, people would come and they'd say, I got bypassed on overtime. And I'm like, well, I need you to write a statement for me about this, and they're like, well, I don't want to do that because then management's going to retaliate against me. And I would say in response, if you want me to be able to do these things that you're asking me to do, if you want me to file a grievance to straighten out the situation, which you'll be compensated for in the meantime anyway, you need to write these statements. Well, they would never fucking do it. So what ended up happening is I'd just be the monkey in the middle where people would be bitching at me about all this stuff, and I'd have to go and complain to management, and management would be like, well, I'm not going to do anything unless they, put their shit down on paper. So, I'd be waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about fucking whose turn it is on the fucking overtime list, and it would just drive me fucking nuts.
How big a pussy do you have to be to not write something down because you're afraid of management retaliation? Are we talking about fucking bamboo under the fingernails? Are we talking about, waterboarding?
Yeah, that's what happens. It's the retaliation is definitely bamboo under the fingernails. Yeah, and waterboarding and all that.
Well, seriously, dude.
The drips on your forehead, they put you in a cell where the room would be at like a 19-degree angle.
Yeah.
So you try to lie down and sleep, and you couldn't fucking sleep, and then they turn the radio on real loud. Yeah, that's that. But again, that's why I quit doing it. I'm a good fighter. Like if you put me in a position to where you give me the tools that I need to do what it is that I need to do for you, I'm pretty arrogant about the fact that I can do it. But these people would just not, Now there were ones that did, and they know who they are, and they were awesome, and I appreciated them. Connie, she taught me what she taught me. She helped me a lot. Fran, of course, backed me up on everything that she asked for. But there were some others that would just drive me fucking nuts, man. In addition to that. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just wondering. So obviously they weren't really waterboarding or bamboo under the fingernails or anything like that. Are we talking about fucking with their hours, taking away vacation days?
Really, honestly, in the environment when I was there, it would have been the simplest. I mean, somebody just would have come and talk shit to them.
That's it.
That would have been it.
Oh my God.
That's why I quit, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit there and I can't have you crying at me. You know, I can help you. I can fight, but I need you to, you know, solidarity is, you know, supposed to be the thing where we're all acting together.
Apparently they don't know what the word retaliation means.
Yeah, yes, I mean, and this is again, that's why I quit doing it. But like some of the problems that, I mean, like the way that the union was function at King Soopers and Kroger, there are tons of other problems with them. I mean, like inside of our unions at the post office, all anybody ever wants is free money, you know. And I don't want that. We need to be. In 1970, when the post office had the big general strike, where they tried to bring the fucking the what do they call it, the National Guard in to do the mail in New York, when that all went down, they couldn't do it. They figured out that this really is actually a job that you have to have skills for. You got to remember a lot of shit, you know, when you're casing stuff. And when they did that, what made them so effective in their strike position was that they were really running the post office. The labor was running the post office. That's not happening anymore. Like these people are fucking chasing their tail. I mean, the post office is in so much fucking shambles right now. Like I don't even know what to fucking say or think. So it's particularly like these two jackasses that I have where I work at. They're the carrier union guys, and all they're ever trying to do is file for money. They're never trying to get things to run smoother. Like if you want to be a strong union, and in my estimation, rule number one is that labor should be running the production position.
We should fix the process and not my weekly paycheck. And don't get me wrong, I want my weekly paycheck, but I want the process to be there, because if the process is there, then the weekly paycheck should come, right?
Presumably.
Okay, yeah. Because of what you're saying is another argument that a lot of people are against unions, where they say, oh, well, you know, it's just where you protect a bunch of lazy fucks who don't really know what they're doing. I don't think that that's really what unions do. And that might be part of it, but I don't think that that's why we should be against unions. You know, I get into arguments, not so much anymore because I'm kind of antisocial, but
kind of.
Well, now these days. At one time, I used to be antisocial, but ironically, I would be a social animal. And I would get into arguments with people, and a lot of them were from the East Coast or from the Midwest, and those guys are still, they're union strongholds, and it's not just because of what it is they do. You know, it's not just electricians or plumbers. It's, fuck it, we want unions for everything.
It's like their ethos, like
yeah,
the culture of those environments.
Like, you know, Chicago, obviously, you know, anywhere in fucking Detroit, New Jersey, Michigan, yeah, it's huge. And that was always their argument. We just need unions to protect us. Mm-hmm. Protect who? Protect all of us. Just everybody from the corporation. And then when I would make the arguments that I made at the beginning of this episode, they have a tendency to, you know, scoff. And maybe for good reason. Maybe they've known people that really got fucked over, or maybe their labor laws in their particular states weren't as strong because they had the unions, so the legislators felt there wasn't reason to, you know, build strong labor laws. I don't know. But shit, I mean, I usually negotiate with the corporations that I leave, and I do okay. And I know that is not because of the union, but because of the laws in the state of Colorado.
I think the point that you're making about the ethos and the culture and the way that people, like the Rust Belt stuff and all, the people that were tied to that industrial union, Auto Workers of America kind of, this is actually one of my big problems with the entire position. And when I see the entire position of unions in general in the United States, particularly, and like when I see the Starbucks kids, holding hands and singing, we're, give us more money, give us sick leave, give us, paid vacation. I don't think that generally speaking, and there's a gal out of Berkeley that I've been listening to a lot lately. Her name is Jane McAlevey. I listened to her on Jacobin, where she's sitting around talking to these three interviewers by the name of Paul Prescott. He's a big union guy out of Philadelphia, Jen Pan, and Ariella Thornhill. One of the things that they talk about when they do their interviewing and they talk about the union, the current state of unions, and they're all pro-union, is that generally speaking, there's an incredible disjuncture between the way that people think about it and the way the production process reproduces itself. And this like to talk to one of those people and for them to say unions because they're thinking unions because 1970, and I mean ultimately. Like I said, I always think we need a counterbalance to capital, but we have to know what time it is. We have to know you can't make history in the historical conditions you're choosing. That means that you need to know what's going on. You need to know how the system is reproducing itself. And if you're not effectively having a fairly decent idea of doing that, you might. You take Chris Smalls and the thing that happened in the Staten Island Amazon, where they the first Amazon facility that was unionized, right? They haven't even gotten Amazon to come to the table, and I don't want to hate on Chris Smalls. I think the kid's he makes it about labor's position. It isn't all about him. He's been a very good spokesperson for this whole activity and this movement. But I think generally speaking, if you want to have a relationship with Amazon where your bargaining position is effective, it has to be global. You can't just be doing it piecemeal. Otherwise, you got no fucking shot. And that's just one example where something that has the depth and breadth that Amazon does in terms of realization of.
Well, so the only thing I was going to say is that most of these unions, and you mentioned Detroit, so obviously we're talking about the Teamsters. Most of these unions started off at one local area, so I'm not going to say the dude in New York can't make it happen. But what I will say is that he does need to realize when he is. Because if he's not careful, he just might fuck everybody up there out of a job. And the reason that I say that is because, Amazon has managed to do some incredible shit logistically. And that is with partnerships with the post office. It's with partnerships with UPS. It's with
DHL.
Driving their own trucks, DHL.
China Post, probably.
They're working on research and development. They're working on driverless cars. They're working on drones. They're working on all of this shit. So, you and I talked about I can't even remember what episode it was, but I remember talking about the McDonald's that had a fucking call center somewhere else. If they're not careful, then Amazon might just say, you know what, fuck you, and we're just going to deliver everything by drone. Now, right now, that is not possible. But next year, it's going to become more possible. And you know where I'm
there's
going.
another retaliation position that they could maintain that would be equally concerning, and that's where, so like Bessemer, Alabama, they tried to, there was a push to unionize down there an Amazon facility, but Bessemer is a rural area, relatively speaking. I mean, you got enough people to have an Amazon facility, so you got tens of thousands of people that are living there, but ultimately there aren't a lot of labor opportunities in Bessemer, Alabama.
Right.
And if you unionize the Amazon facility down there, certainly Amazon has the ability to just shut that shop down and move it elsewhere.
Right.
This is where my point about, you have to know what time it is. You have, like, if you're going to do these things, you're going to have to scale it a little bit differently. And of course, the paradox is that you don't have the kind of consciousness that you need on a global level right now, to where you could say, if the longshoremen and the railway workers and all the logistical spaces in terms of UPS, FedEx, DHL, USPS, China, all the various different, we could just put it all on lockdown, so there is no realization of any profits for anybody until our position is better bargained for. I mean, that's fantasy land. That
maybe that's where the mafia started influencing the union as much as they did.
Whoa, that was a weird tangent. What do you mean?
Was because they just went down to the docks and they said, you know what, your shit's not coming through until this, and this happens. And then
put it on the kibosh. Totally shut everything down.
I don't know for sure. But what I'm saying is, I know, like, I've heard the FBI talk about, the mafia controlling the docks in this place or that. I've heard it referenced on fictional TV shows. So maybe, just maybe, that's how they started getting into the unions, and that's how they got with Hoffa to start corrupting the unions to begin with. Or maybe it was farther back, like I said, with the Black Hand. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But when you said the thing about putting everything on lock, maybe that's where they said, yeah, we've got this piece and this piece and this piece, and we can help deliver it to you, but you've got to deliver this to us.
Yeah. That's real power. But that's where, I mean, that if that's the truth, that would have been a moment where the Black Hand, and all the philosophy that developed out of it would have really demonstrated power, because they are understanding the process of how realization chains work. Like, if you're not interrupting, and that, again, that's another thing about the current moment. And like, again, the Starbucks kids, 14 kids, and I'm not trying, I don't want to shit on you guys. That's fine. It's great that you're doing that. But I hope that you're doing deeper studying and thinking a little bit further than where it is that you're at, because you're a teeny little turd on an island. I mean, if you're wanting to affect meaningful change, you're going to have to do it to scale. And that means that you're going to have to, have the longshoremen working with the railway workers, working with the people that deliver the packages at the end.
Well, and I don't mean to talk shit about the Starbucks people, and I know that Starbucks is always saying, we treat our farmers well and we source our beans this way and that. But if I had to guess, out of the fucking Starbucks ecosystem, who's really getting fucked? It's the farmer, not the barista.
Well, it doesn't have to be either or. They can both be getting fucked.
Yes, but
who knows? I mean, if they're buying it from, are they buying it from one farmer in Ecuador? I don't think so.
They're buying it from lots of different farmers in Ethiopia and Ecuador and probably Jamaica. They might even be buying that fucking really expensive cat shit coffee.
Cat shit coffee?
Yeah, some fucking weird cat eats the beans and then shits them out, and it ends up going for fucking like $300 a pound or some shit.
That is fucking weird.
I don't even think it's really a cat, but I call it cat shit coffee because that animal looks kind of like a cat.
But you're suggesting that because they're the ones that are making the giant purchases so they can basically set. It's like Walmart when they put Rubbermaid out of fucking business and shit. They buy so much of the coffee, they're setting the price. So the small farmer, if they want to sell the fucking Starbucks, they basically have to accept what it is that they're given at that point in time. So yeah, they're probably getting fucked too. But again, that's something where if you want to respond to it, they'd have to do it at scale, you know?
So this is a tangent for sure, but the animal is called a Kopi Luwak.
What is it?
Oh no, that's the kind of coffee. I don't fucking know. Oh, it's an Asian palm civet.
What?
That's the kind of animal it is. It is defecated by the Asian palm. Is that civet?
What does it look like?
That's the cat shit coffee.
We'll show the cat.
I don't know where the fucking cat is. Oh, it looks like a fucking, come on, cocksucker. It just had there it is.
Oh, that is weird, dude. It looks like a little, like, monkey cat.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a sloth.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming dangerously close to the end of this thing. So look, you want to protect people. I want to protect people to some degree. You probably don't really want to make money. I would like to make enough money to survive at least. Maybe, not have to worry all the time about money.
For free? Is it?
No, but I know that you want the counterbalance thing, so I don't know exactly what that looks like. So that's my question coming up, is if you were going to create a union, regardless of what industry, right? Let's just say it's union for whatever. What does your union look like?
Okay, so I got 7-8 hours to answer that question. I mean, am I going to be able to have enough time to develop it, right? So the important thing is that as it develops, like the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand the world that we're living in. We need to be interacting with one another in a way to where we all are sort of like participating in and understanding that that's something that's organic, and it's going to like our knowledge is going to change as we grow because we're interacting with it at the same time. So the union itself would have to start to take on that kind of character. Now, the real shit of it is that once you start down this path, like we're talking about unions right now. I mean, this is a podcast. This is something that our fucking friends, the intelligence agencies, are gonna listen to because they don't like unions. They're functioning on behalf of capital.
We're already gonna be called communists. Yeah. We're gonna be called fucking all sorts of shit.
But you understand why I'm saying. So yeah. I mean, the anytime you try to do anything like this, it's going to be met with a degree of resistance, right? So, what it's going to look like on the ground when it happens, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be real fucking pretty. But I can't make it. But no matter what, it can't be this thing where you have islands over here of Starbucks and one facility, in Staten Island. Again, I'm not like what Chris Smalls and those folks managed to do up there was pretty fucking remarkable. I want to give them their, and I'm glad that the Starbucks kids did what they wanted to do too. That's fucking cool. But still, like, the point of these things, I mean, movements where we're trying to deal with these questions of political economy, they cannot function on islands. Like, solidarity is about seeing what your interests are and how they connect to other people's interests and how that can push outward. So once that starts to happen, then that would be my hope, but the fact of the matter is that once that starts to happen, again, all hitherto history is the history of class struggle. If you start to consolidate a position that threatens a shift in the way that the system is going to reproduce itself, let's see, that guy got killed, that guy got killed, that guy got killed. I mean, this is what's his Julian Assange just posted some pictures of the U.S. military fucking killing fucking non-combatants and the media, and he's been in prison now for a decade, 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, and 3 years now in the UK. I mean, there are consequences for activism when you do these sorts of things. I mean, the fact of the matter is that right now we're just farting in spacesuits. We're just going back and forth. It's just you and me. Nobody else is listening to this other than one guy in Maryland and two guys in Virginia. So. But we're still going to talk about it. We're going to think about it because it's healthy, and that's what we do. So.
Okay, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just to kind of summarize, you want your union to kind of be, or at least the contract initially, you want it to be kind of a living document. It's flexible, not to say that you're going to come in and put amendments in it all the time, but does that mean that the contract comes up more often?
I mean, that stuff.
Okay, yeah,
we're going to have to get a little bit further down now. I just hope that the first thing that we can start to do is reach out across, I hate the concept of trade unions on one level because trade unions are always stuck in their own spaces. I want things to reach out across borders. I mean, everything that I talk about, transnationalization of the state, transnational capital, transnational this, transnational that.
So you just
getting
want
us out of boxes.
A larger network and connectivity throughout and communication throughout said network.
Yeah, because then we're all working on it sort of together. But that's so far down though. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like if anything inside of the post office even started to threaten that, they would put the fucking kibosh on that shit so quick. Yeah. I mean, it'd be a done deal. So
that's fair enough. I just thought I'd ask because I don't necessarily know what mine would look like either.
Do you think there needs to be a counterbalance? I mean, in any form, or is it something that we should just generally leave to the individuals to do on their own?
Well, so again, when they had people working fucking 18 hours a day for 13 cents, I think maybe those people needed some protection, when they're getting their fucking arm squashed by a pallet of, barrel or oil barrel drums or whatever, and they just don't even pay to get his fucking foot amputated. I think that guy needed some protection. When they've got a 5-year-old working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But then
6
again,
days a week's okay. But 7 days a week, you gotta draw the line.
Then again, a lot of the kids aren't learning anything in school either, so maybe they should get a job. I don't know. I don't know what the union would look like.
It would be a contextual thing.
Yeah, I mean, the protection thing, I definitely want to be there. What I don't want to happen is, again, to just create another fucking corporation that's just out for themselves. Because then I feel like I'm ripping off the people that I told I was going to protect to begin with.
The institution, when that happens, it loses sight of what it's there for. And
right.
It's just used for something else, to extract money for some lazy motherfucker that doesn't want to have to go and actually do it.
Or whatever. Maybe some asshole that wants to go buy a yacht or a vacation home or whatever. Because, I mean, some of these unions, when they get as big, I mean, because, fuck, the Teamsters, what did those numbers say? That they had 1.2 billion by 1950?
1947.
I mean, that's a lot of fucking people.
Insane. It couldn't have been 47. It had to be later because it had to be far enough after World War II to where the numbers come. People come back from the war and all that shit.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, that's a lot of people paying into the union, and so
a lot of places for Jimmy Hoffa and his buddies to swipe some cash here and there.
Right. Or just fucking not even swipe it. Just walk right out with it and say, hey, I'm taking this money. I'm going to Florida with all my mafia buddies.
This is my bonus.
We're going to wave to Castro, talk about assassinating Kennedy. Sorry, I was looking at the number, but I know we're coming up. Yeah, so at 1950, it was 1.2 million. Yeah, so we're at like 50 some minutes now. We need to wrap this thing up. Well, let us know what you think about unions, what you would do with the union, or who you want to protect in whatever job.
We thinking about midterms for Monday, maybe?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Midterms on Monday, and some sort of other political shit next week, or entertaining stuff on Wednesday. I don't know. Anyway.
If we're just talking about our political system, that's pretty much just a joke on its face anyway. So,
Twitter is Short Bus Debate. TikTok is Short Bus Debate Club.
720-334-ROLL.
And that's what we're gonna do.
Roll, bitches, roll.
Roll. See you guys later.
Later.